Well, first, I'd just like to welcome you all to our District 3 community meeting. I appreciate you taking the time out of your evening, especially a Tuesday evening, to join us here and to get some valuable information from city leadership and your city, and seeing how your tax dollars are being spent to keep you safe, to keep the waters on, to keep the lights on. And so we really appreciate your participation in this meeting. I do want to announce that we do have translation service for our interpretation services. Restrooms and water fountains are accessible through the back door there. And welcome to Robinson Park Recreation Center. And it's so fitting that we have our meeting today on Jackie Robinson Day. And I think that deserves a round of applause. He broke the color barrier today. He challenged the nation to confront its own racism and push the boundaries of what is possible. His legacy does endure today as I think ever before. And it's an honor to be here today in this space on what we call Jackie Robinson Day. During this month of May also is the Pasadena Water and Power Water Awareness Month. Come on in. It's an annual outreach campaign to raise awareness about the value of water in Southern California and our natural resources. Throughout May, PWP will be highlighting water sustainability and resilience in our community with educational events, tours, and contests. All events are free and open to the public, and they can be found at pwpweb.com/The Ripple Effect. And this is we've had numerous of curbside chats and coffee and tea conversations throughout the district, but this is our first district-wide meeting since the Eden Fire, which has left a tremendous mark on our community. It's impacted numerous of us in this room and our city employees and our residents. We have a lot of new residents now who have moved into Pasadena who did live in Altadena, and I spoke to one person a few months ago who actually lived in Palisades, and they moved to Pasadena with family. And so it's impacted us throughout this region. You know, the loss of life and the impact of the families weigh heavy on my heart. I've been impacted personally because my father lived in Altadena and his home was damaged, and so he moved in with my wife and I. But we'll get through this. I know one thing about Pasadena is we're resilient, we're strong. We've overcome barriers before, and so we will rebuild, we'll get stronger. And so I think with our city leadership, with the residents in Pasadena, we can get through this and we can accomplish great things going forward in our future. And before I turn it over and start our program, we do have several members of our city executive team here today. You'll hear updates from the city manager. You'll hear updates from our fire chief, our public works director. You'll also hear a presentation by the Rent Stabilization Department and our Cultural Affairs Division. And we're here to address any questions that you have, provide you with any resources that you need, and just to be of service to you. And so with that, I'd like to introduce our city manager, Mr. Miguel Marquez.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones, and I want to echo your words about the fire. It was truly a difficult period for all of us, and you're right, we will build back and we will build back better. So let me start by letting you know that I do have to leave a little bit early today. There's another community meeting that starts at 7:30 that I have to get to and make a presentation there. So my apologies for that, but wanted to be here first. So let me start with what we've started engaging in recently, which is the budget decision. Budgets are incredibly important. We in the city of Pasadena have a budget of about $1.1 billion. That's our operating budget. And on top of that, we have a capital budget. So I'll keep it pretty high level, but I'll say the news overall is pretty good relative to others. You might have seen in today's Pasadena Star News that the county has about a $90 million deficit, and they're going to reduce spending by about 3%. You might have heard in the news maybe 2 weeks ago that the city of LA has about $1 billion deficit, and they're having to do a lot more than what the county's doing. You might have heard in the news that the Pasadena Unified School District had to lay off about 151 staff members, many of them teachers. In the state of California, what they do is they do a January budget that the governor releases in January, then they do a May revise. So that'll come out next month. And the May revise will take into account projected revenues, and lots of the state dollars are dependent on the stock market. I hope you haven't been looking at your 401ks, but it's going to be rough. So, all of that is challenging for us. But I think the good news is that we will not have any, it does not appear, we're still doing revenues, projections, we're still doing expenses, and I have yet to hear from the council. I hope I get their support, but we have some ideas that will get us to a place where we don't have to make any cuts or freezes. That's the good news. The bad news is it appears that we're razor thin. Expenses will meet revenues, and so we're not going to have a lot more money for all of the programs that we want to do for the community. We'll continue to fight for and look for different ways to find funding sources, but with our general fund revenues, with the amount of money we get from the state and federal government and from grants, we're going to be struggling to make ends meet, but at least, again, we don't have a shortfall that's going to require layoffs or freezes or anything like that. And then the other piece of good news is we have a reserve policy. 5% of our general fund goes away for one reserve, and then another one has 15%. That requires a little more action to get to it. So we have what are called, 115 trust funds, both for pension and for what they call OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits. Altogether, we have about 80 million. I'm not saying we're gonna go grab that 80 million and go spend it. We gotta be prudent. We have a long road ahead of us. I think the biggest uncertainty we have is our federal government. I can share with you maybe 2 weeks into the new administration, maybe something like that. It was a Tuesday morning, and I got, my phone starts blowing up, what's going on? And we received a letter where the federal government had frozen $3 trillion across the nation of federal dollars. For us, that's about $51 million. Later on in that, about noontime, right around lunch, we get another memo. They said, no, it's only about these particular funds relating to these executive orders. By the afternoon, they said, no, it's about these smaller executive orders. I think they were learning how important federal funding is to all of us, and they were hearing the impacts it would have. The next day, it was a Wednesday, I still remember, we got a memo. They said, never mind, none of that money is frozen. So that was good. We went through that exercise, almost lost $50 million. But the real issue is we have a lot of uncertainty. So we need to be prudent with the reserves that we have to write out what's going to be, and that was early on. That was 2 weeks in. We're not even 100 days in to this administration, but we've had many, many threats, and we are well positioned, but we are also deeply concerned about where we head. Let's see. I also want to mention one of the reasons we're doing okay is because we have our utility. We have Pasadena Water and Power. And because we don't have what are called investor-owned utilities, like I'm from up north, PG&E, or over here, Edison, or in San Diego, San Diego Gas and Electric, we're able to, believe it or not, provide one of the lowest costs energy rates for residences throughout between, Edison, Los Angeles, Glendale, Burbank, and us. We're, I think, either the lowest or second lowest. And so that's a testament to the good work of our folks at the utility, and that really helps us stabilize our finances citywide. Other good news, even though times are tough, we're adding this year close to $450 million to our capital budget. That's for projects. Now, a big chunk of that is for the Central Library. Voters in November passed a bond. It was a bond, general obligation bond for $195 million. So about of the $450 million, $195 is for the library. And we'll be issuing those bonds soon. So we're starting to do that work, and we're going to have a beautiful Central Library that will be earthquake safe. I think we all had that reminder yesterday or the day before when San Diego had a initially 6.0 earthquake. It got revised to 5.2. But somebody said we were either going to bite the bullet and do the retrofit and have a library for this next century, or we were going to have rubble. Because, Dr. Lucy Jones from Caltech said there will be an earthquake of a magnitude in the next 100 years that will topple down the library that we have. So we plan to finish the library 2028 timeframe, and it's going to be a beautiful gathering space for everybody. Another thing I want to do, quickly tell you about, we had a big community meeting at the Lake Avenue Church regarding the property at Lake and Villa. That used to be, for some, you might remember, the old Kaiser site. The city bought it. We're looking to do affordable housing and mental health outpatient services at that location. So we wanted to hear from community. We had about 150 people show up, about a dozen tables. People, talked about what they want to see, and they provided their input. So that was great. Public safety is doing a great job, and violent crime is down. And we know there's issues here and around the park area, and we're prepared to let you know what we've been working on, but we are well aware of the issues. We've tried a lot of different tactics to try and get our arms around making it a safer place, and we look forward to continuing those discussions. And then finally, as I started, the Eaton fire was just an amazing, I don't know about amazing is the right word, but it was just a profound effort on the city's part to keep everybody as safe as we could. And we have our fire chief here and his team who just did amazing work. We have our police chief and his team who also did amazing work. And we always, and I want to, let's give them a round of applause because they really, as first responders, did so much. But it's I want to emphasize that it's more than them, and I think they know this. It was Public Works. Our Public Works director is here. They were the ones clearing the streets from the trees that had fallen so that the fire engines could get through, so the police could get through. And they did a fantastic job cleaning up all of the debris that happened from the windstorm. There was Parks. I said, what does Parks have to do with Eaton Fire? Well, we had to open up an evacuation shelter, and we had to call on our park staff to be disaster service workers. So they went over and they started running shelter operations. It's not normally what Parks employees do. You know who else helped in that? Library employees. We just asked our library employees, help these people. You saw that picture of the officer carrying a gentleman out from one of the care facilities. That was in the New York Times, very famous photo. Well, they all went to the Civic Center, the convention center, where we opened up a shelter in about 2 hours. And in less than 24 hours, we had about 1,100 people there. And we had to provide all kinds of care, medications, everything else that they needed. And that was people from throughout the city organization that played that important role. So I want to make sure we highlight their work too, since too often we say police and fire and they deserve all the credit, but so does everybody else. So those are the updates that I have on the big picture. I hope I didn't go over my 10 minutes. I might have, but thank you, and I'll stick around as long as I can and happy to answer any questions, if not now, at other events. Oh, even if you want now.
Right now for the city manager? Do we have a mic?
In rebuilding the foothill communities, Pasadena, Altadena, Sierra Madre, after the Eaton's fire, if Pasadena represents water and power, a structure and a system of a more affordable way of doing business, is it possible to consider having an option besides Edison in rebuilding for those communities for power? I don't know if I'm understanding the statement you made earlier clearly enough to ask an appropriate question, but I'm just curious. You made a reference to, in comparison to what Edison and PG&E had maybe offered or has offered in services, that it's more affordable for the communities of Pasadena regarding water and power. Is there any way that it could expand and branch out in the larger foothill communities to offer maybe services and alternatives so it's not such a monopoly and more affordable and also safer?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I don't know the answer to that question, how it all works, and whether a municipal utility can go outside of its boundaries. I know we do provide water in Altadena. I think we have about 1,400 customers in Altadena. We're actually the largest water provider in Altadena. Power, I don't know the rules. It's highly regulated. They have what's called CAISO, which is the California Independent System Operator. And there's lots of regulatory rules behind it. I can tell you that from a city perspective, we are not going to try and move in that direction and force anything on Altadena. That's not what we're going to do. We are here to listen. We are here to support. We are here to do whatever we can. If the community reaches out, we'll see what's possible. I can't give you an answer yes or no. I don't know how it all works. There's always going to be lots of complexities around those kind of questions, but we want to be helpful. We understand it's one DINA. We understand that we can play an important role. So, especially on the water side, we'll see. We're trying to be as supportive with interconnections and everything we can do to get people clean water, because it's all of us. People in Altadena shop and eat and play and do everything here in Pasadena. So we're looking into it. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions for the city manager? All right. Thank you, Miguel.
You're welcome.
Okay, up next, I'm very grateful for the service and efforts to ensure our community is prepared by our fire department and our emergency service manager. It's important that we connect with one another on this topic. My office has been coordinating a prepared Pasadena session for District 3 residents, so please be on the lookout for the save the date on that. And with that, I'd like to welcome up our Fire Chief, Chad Augustine, and our Emergency Service Manager, I'm blanking on your name here. Nayeli.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. I also, this evening, I have Deputy Chief Tim Sell. I just want to start by thanking Councilmember Jones and Lisa. We have a fire station right across the street, and they have adopted us as part of their family and vice versa. And the relationship in this city is what gets things done. And so we're grateful to this community. We're grateful to Councilmember Jones, and I just appreciate the support. I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Tim Sell. He's going to give a quick update. And in our allotted time, we're going to be here for the three of us for any questions.
Hi, good evening. As the chief said, I'm Deputy Chief Tim Sell, here to provide you a quick update about our department. So February 7th, we graduated our most recent academy. We had 7 recruits successfully complete the 18-week academy. So they are now out and serving in the community. In fact, I think you have 3 of the 7 recruits now on the 3 shifts that we have within your district. We have a new academy that will be coming, and that process and recruitment opens April 17th, so this Thursday. So for those aspiring firefighters, look to the city's website, where it'll have the qualifications and expectations and kind of a run of our process that's there. So that'll post in 2 days. We are currently interviewing for fire inspector candidates. We have 1 opening currently within that division, and those are who go out and inspect the businesses. From our educational facilities through gas stations, hazmat, all the business that takes place in addition to our large residential, those inspectors. So we currently have 1 opening, and we hope to have that filled very soon. And then we have a CSW program, which is a paramedic trainee. So that's for somebody that has an intent on becoming a firefighter. And right now in the fire service, there is an overall shortage of paramedics. So, which is a higher level of training from EMT. It's about a 9 to 10 month program. And what the city has done is instead of just waiting for paramedics to come to us, we want to foster that within our community. So it's an opportunity for us to come to have people who are aspiring firefighters who meet our qualifications, that we will go and send them to paramedic school. And at the end, if they're successful, they get to interview with the fire chief and the executive chiefs for a job at the end of that. So we're excited about that program. We have a recruitment for that's coming up as well. So stay tuned to the fire department website for that. It'll post on there. And then special events in, I believe it's 2 weeks from now, we have our Women's Empowerment Camp where we're partnering with Glendale Fire Department. We're going to have, I believe it's 60 to 65 campers that are within the 18 to 25 years old. So we've done these in the past, which are for the younger ages. This one are for those who are really starting to enter that job market and want to know what it has. So we're going to do a 2-day kind of abbreviated fire academy for them to set the expectations and then kind of provide them the resources and direction so they can become future firefighters. a very, very popular topic, if you've been reading the news or listening and watching the news, are the high hazard severity zone maps. Those were released at the end of March. And those come out from the State Fire Marshal's office. So the last update for those occurred from 2007 to 2011. This is the second version of those maps. Basically, it's state law that says that the state of California must delineate if you live in a hazard zone from moderate, high to very high. So those new maps were released. They are available on CAL FIRE's website. Within the next week, we will have them posted on the city's website as well. What we're doing is working with our IT department behind the scenes to where it just makes it very, very easy for a resident to find out what zone that they live in, where they can type their address in and it will show what zone that it lives in. In addition to that, it will overlay old zone to new zone, and then have links to all of the assembly bills as to why this is required. So the zones are used for several purposes, but more importantly, it's to really just to designate the California's defensible space standards as it pertains to wildland-urban interface. The chief within the upcoming Public Safety Committee, I don't believe we have the date on that, or do we? So sometime in the next 2 weeks at a public safety, the fire chief will give an update to the Eaton Fire. Our brush inspections are starting in May. So we'll conduct right around 4,000 brush inspections in the month of May. While District 3 is not in the high hazard severity zone, it's really a great reminder, right? As a community, we just endured one of the largest natural disasters, certainly in California's history. So while as a homeowner or as a resident of the city, you go, well, yeah, but it affected another part of the city. What you can do is take a look around where you live and make sure that our dry brush, our trees are trimmed, that the leaves are off the ground, that we are doing what we can to prevent a conflagration like we've already experienced. And with that, as fireworks season approaches, they're illegal in the city of Pasadena. There is no legal fireworks. So please, 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 the council constantly gets pinged on these, especially every weekend. When you come off the weekend, it's, hey, we had a number of complaints. So if you hear them, report them to report them to the police department, and they'll go out and make an attempt to stop those. But they are absolutely illegal in the city of Pasadena. And with that, I'd like to introduce Nelly Procopio. Right, did I get it? Yeah. Now, the more I say it, I get the accent right. And she's our emergency manager for the city. She's absolutely wonderful, and she'll talk to you about Prepare Pasadena.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Nayeli Procopio. I am the city's emergency manager. I'm your emergency manager, and really what I always come to communities for is really look around you. That is your neighbor, that is your biggest helper, and is your pathway to creating a more safe and prepared Pasadena. What I have been working with your district office is on a program called Prepared Pasadena. And this is a program that had a little bit of a variation before I got to the city a year and a half ago. And we formalized it, cleaned it up a little bit, and now we have this big unique program here in Pasadena. It is based on a longer program that's called the CERT program, which is our Community Emergency Response Team program. That program is still very much alive and is something that I also promote. The reason why it is not our main focus is because that program is 21 hours. If you all have 21 hours to spend with me, you will get that invitation. But for most of us, 4 hours is something that we can do on a weekend. So our Prepared Pasadena program is a program that teaches disaster preparedness. And so you get to spend an hour and a half with me learning all of that. But then you also get the fun activities that are hands-on with our fire department, and you get to learn how to use a fire extinguisher. You get to learn how to do hands-only CPR. You get to learn how to drag and carry your household members or your neighbors, which they all have a lot of fun doing that. Along with learning how to identify your utilities. So who knows where their water shutoff is? There's not enough hands up. So that's your homework for tonight. And And, learning how to identify your water shut off, your gas shut off, and basically anything that's around your home that can be a hazard. The other thing we talk about is learning how to evacuate your home, whether you live in a one-story home with a front door and a back door. Also reminding everybody that windows are exits. Whether you live in a condo, a multi-level apartment building, always be aware of your surroundings. And we talk a little bit about SIR. We give you an introduction. As I said, it is 21 hours, so this is kind of where I try to recruit you for that and show you how much fun I am to spend 21 hours for. The other program that I do introduce during that class is your Map Your Neighborhood program. So I will always be in front of you telling you to meet your neighbor, get to know your neighbor. They're not as scary as they seem. Because really when we come down to a situation like Eden Fire, you are relying on your neighbors. Our fire department, our police departments are there. However, the amount of people that were helping their neighbors evacuate, whether they met each other for the first time or known each other for years, it was incredible to see. They were driving them to the shelter. They were like rooming together. I have a family member that can house us both. I lead by example. I've already made my evacuation plan, and I will tell you about my neighbor, Debbie. She's 80 years old. She lives with 2 cats. Her nearest relation is in North California. So as soon as we met, I was like, hey, what's your evacuation plan? And during the night of the fire, it was a high wind. We have a lot of trees in our neighborhood, which we're usually really thankful for. But I said, if any of the trees come down, just bother my husband and he'll take you to my sister's. And those are the types of conversations that we need to have with our neighbors. And we'll talk all about that during Prepared Pasadena. So if you are interested in that, we will have a district-wide one. But then what I also offer is if you do have a community group, we can also tailor one for your church, for your nonprofit, that will really address those. And those can be either you can register on our website or talk to Lisa and she'll talk to me and we'll get that out to you all. And if you don't have the 4-hour one, we also tailor it to an hour and we can just spend it together. We just won't have the fun hands-on stuff. And then the last thing I do want to leave you with is I left a little postcard on the table over there. You get to walk away with a starter go bag list so you know what to put on your go bag. It also explains red flag days, how red flag days are enforced. It explains the difference between an evacuation warning and an evacuation order, which we all learned were really, really important during Eden Fire. And you get to walk away with the links to all of our alerting systems. I put the 2 that are the main ones for Pasadena, which is Pasadena Police. And we also have the link up there. And then our Nixo, which typically is used by our police department. And you can get more notifications about police activity or anything going on in the city. The Please is more for bigger events like we did for Eden Fire when you do have to evacuate. But with that, I'll leave you with those resources, and I hope we didn't go over time too. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Nayeli and the fire chiefs? No questions. All right. Thank you. Okay, up next we have a presentation from our Public Works Director, Mr. Greg DeVink.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg DeVink. I'm the new Public Works Director. I don't know how long I can say new, but I'm fairly new to Pasadena. I was invited to introduce myself to this group, District 3, and I said, sure, and then I got the agenda and it says, you have a presentation. But that's not a bad thing because over time, all of you who get to watch me or learn about me, I love talking about public works. So I will brag a little bit about the awesome things Public Works does. A little bit by way of introduction, my background is I have a degree in civil engineering. Since then, since graduating, I did 6 years of mostly structural design for bridges. And then I came to California from the East Coast. I just got drawn here like many of us do. And I started with the city of Santa Monica, and I was there for 22 years in their engineering division. And seeking growth opportunities, I got a promotion to be the Director of Public Works for San Gabriel, just south of here, 2 towns. And I was there for 6 years, and then this opportunity arose, and I applied, and here I am. I did start in early December, and it's an interesting time to start because it's holiday seasons and it's festive. And it was actually, I believe, my 3rd day on the job. In this very room, I had to come introduce myself to my staff. And there was a lot more chairs. Public Works is about 273 people. It's kind of a daunting thing to say, hello, everyone, you all work for me. But it was cool. It was very exciting, an exciting time. And through the holidays and getting all that, and then the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl, and Public Works is very involved in those. There's a lot of preparation that's generally unknown, and then tremendous cleanup effort after. Just to get the floats down the road, we remove streetlights and put them back the next day. And there's just really things you don't think about, but the floats will hit the lights if we don't do it. And then we rolled into a windstorm. We were, preparing for a windstorm. We opened the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, in preparation for the windstorm, not really realizing it would become a great fire disaster. And people have come to me saying, it's really unfortunate you started now in all this turmoil, and it's not always like this. But I kind of have the opposite reaction. I'm not happy that a tragedy occurred, but I'm very excited to be part of it. I feel what Public Works really does matters, and how we can help, and it's where we shine. And since I love bragging about Public Works, it just gave me a little more opportunity to have the department shine. So with that, I'll go through a couple slides. So on the night of the fire, really, so many departments kind of shined as heroes. And just in normal daily life, Public Works is largely ignored. We're not seen as heroes because people don't even realize we exist. Just when things work, everything's fine, and you don't think about it. Whenever something doesn't work, then it's Public Works, right? When the sewage is in the gutter, or the trees are falling down, the traffic lights aren't coming on, that's Public Works. So we get attention when it's bad automatically, and we have to kind of lobby to get good attention, which I really enjoy doing. So here's some pictures I had that people don't really realize, but the top left photo is Public Works staff in one of our painting crew vans, and they're loading in a wheelchair senior from a senior care facility that was on fire while we were evacuating. A lot of people were involved in the evacuation effort, but so was Public Works. Public Works staff over there is, the fire was so big, it almost feels like a futile effort, but we were trying to put out fires in the mulch of a park. You can see one guy's even using the extinguisher from the truck. We try everything we can. A lot of trees came down. We lost about 400 trees just in one day. And they were blocking access to fight the fires, blocking access to evacuate people, blocking people's driveways and sidewalks and front doors. Some trees fell on homes. There's a lot to happen all at once, and just a tremendous effort to deal with it. But I think it was a tragedy, but we dealt with it pretty well. I'm proud of what staff has done, and I'm proud to be part of that staff. That's why I feel excited coming here. On the night of the windstorm, even possibly before the fire started, we had streetlights coming down, traffic signals coming down, signs falling over. We were out. We were prepared. We had staff on standby. We had all the trucks charged, fueled, ready, all the tools ready to go. The winds came, and we went out. We started dealing with it. The bottom right picture is kind of interesting. I've never actually seen one before this, but that's called the tub grinder. The amount of green waste that fell throughout the city, we contracted heavy equipment, and they're called Super 10 dump trucks. They're really big ones with lots of wheels, and they hold a lot of weight. We filled 3,000 of those with just tree debris, just green waste. And that's at the driving range on the golf course, and we turned it all into mulch and trucked it all out of town. So here's some of the cleanup effort. We did contract with 56 pieces of heavy equipment. We had a tub grinder to convert it to mulch and haul it all away. We did have 50 contracted laborers. We had over 50 staff from Public Works. Staff from other departments also helped, like Parks helped in the cleanup effort. There was way over 100 volunteers. There was many hundreds of volunteers in all different ways of helping clean up. And so from the wind event, by the following Monday, we had all the contracted equipment and labor in place. And then over the following 3 weeks, we managed to go through the entire city, one round, because people with their private waste were continuing to bring it out into the street, even after we passed by. So sometimes it didn't seem like we were there, but we were. And we made a second round, just to deal with that problem. Moving forward, Public Works is largely responsible for dealing with mud flows. Now that we have burned and scarred hillsides, they're more prone with the loss of vegetation to flooding. Pretty much our flooding or mud flow experience has been in the North Hastings Ranch neighborhood. The K-rail we put out, that's along New York Drive, and the county puts some K-rail out in North Hastings, but we do have, in the last rainstorm, we had 4 streets that got mud built up in the street. And so we go out there and shovel it up and street sweep and clean it up and make sure the storm drains are flowing and move on. It's going to rain again. The professionals who have experience with this say to expect some degree of mudslides for 3 years before vegetation puts it to its pre-fire condition for slope stability. Moving on to happier things. We did mention that the library bond did pass for $195 million, and council authorized an alternative form of delivering the project recently. That is actually going to be advertised for construction management firms to bid. We're going to advertise tomorrow, so it's kind of a milestone. Well, there's tomorrow. We will have, this is the tentative schedule of the early phases. You can kind of see that the deadlines for proposals are June 5. We'll do some interviews after evaluating their proposals, and we'll bring to council July 21 a recommendation to hire what's called a construction manager at risk. That's the form of contracting we're doing, where we negotiate with a design build team for guaranteed maximum price. There's liability that they absorb, and then we get some level of protection from cost overruns. You can imagine a major retrofit to a very old building is just automatically prone to change orders. There's going to be so many unforeseen conditions as this work occurs. This form of contracting passes a lot of risk to the contractor and kind of protects us from going over budget, which is why we're doing it this way. It's new for Pasadena, but a lot of agencies have been doing this for decades, and it is a successful and tested method. This is the overall timeline for the library project, and kind of getting right to the punchline. Mid-28, we should have the red tag removed, all the building final, ready for occupancy, and staff will be moving all the books back in and reestablishing programs. So it's on track. We intend to deliver it on time and on budget and with what was promised to the voting public. Taking us from kind of highs to lows. This is a chart. I just want to mention this topic. It's always, everywhere is a big concern, the condition of our streets. And cities do hire independent evaluations of our streets for condition index. And it's a scoring method of 0, pretty much a dirt or gravel road, to 100, a brand new paved street with a new structural section. It's going to last a very long time. Pasadena is currently at a 57, which is not an enviable score. It's an asset we have that's been underfunded, and it's degraded, and it's a challenge of Public Works. It's my responsibility to get that number up as best as I can. And so we do have consultants evaluate it, and they come with recommendations and budget forecasting and how much if you spend, what kind of number can you get to. I'm a believer we can outperform the consultants just with different strategies and technologies that are out there and carefully picking and choosing what we do. There's also a desire, a very strong desire in Pasadena, because we have council districts, to do work everywhere. That's not always the most efficient thing, but every district wants to see some improvements. So it's another part of the strategy. How do we deal with that to get our streets improved? Every year, I'm automatically forced into a budget. A budget will be approved, and that's the means I have to live within. Where my challenge is to get the most out of that budget. What can we do you got the longest longevity, value engineering, and just to get the most lifespan out of every dollar we spend. The goal is to provide desirable infrastructure within our means. It's not going to be perfect. We need an awful lot of money there's no city that has 100. That's just an unrealistic thing, and the cost escalation just goes way up when you get into the 90s. But the goal is to get it ultimately up into the 80s, and then ongoing maintenance becomes quite affordable. When you've already sunk to your streets, we have many streets that are even in the 20s. They're bad. We all know it. There's potholes, pothole-ridden streets. Those streets become very difficult, very expensive to get up to a good street. Once it's up to a good street, to keep it there is much more affordable. That's where we want to get. This is the next paving contract, which actually is starting this week. It starts with saw cutting, so it's not so disruptive. They'll saw cut where they're doing curb and gutter replacements, because we do some concrete work with paving each year. But you can see the work is kind of scattered all about the city. And these are all full-width cold mills. So these streets are not just going to get a thin layer of slurry that's appropriate for moderate to good condition streets. These streets are going to get grind and overlay. It costs a little more. It's not a full street replacement, but they'll ride like new streets. And we will be using rubberized asphalt. If you're familiar with it, it does ride smoother and quieter. I think it's a very slightly more expensive, but I think it's worth it because because of the crumb rubber from car tires, recycled car tires. It does have some flexibility and some tensile strength to resist cracking, where streets just degrade faster. Here's one that's really hard to see that I added later, but we do have plans for our upcoming next year's sewer projects, and the bluish color, which is most prevalent, is just videoing. We need to video all our sewer lines to get an accurate assessment of where we're at, to know where the problems are, to decide where capital money should go. And then there's some red lines that are really hard to see, and maybe after this presentation, after we're all done, we can leave this up here and you can look up close. But the red lines are lining projects. The city has been focusing in recent years on lining our sewer mains, which pulls in essentially a heated soft resin felt, then blows it up to the shape of the sewer, and then it cures under heat and steam. Then they send in a robotic camera and a cutter, and they'll open up everyone's laterals. When it goes well, it's disruptive for one day. If you live on that section being done, you'll be notified that it's happening. You'll be notified, please don't use any water that day. Water makes the performance more difficult. It makes it harder on the contractor. It can adversely affect the quality of the work. So that'll happen. And you can see one major red line going east-west in the middle, just above the freeway. That will cut through this district. There may be more. It'll be a long time before I know all the street names in Pasadena. Here's another one, just ADA sidewalk upgrades. So we do track a lot of things on a GIS map. And this just puts little green dots on parcels that are adjacent to where sidewalk work is going to happen. And you can kind of see in the top left, there's a couple squares on corners. Those will be new ADA ramps. And that's it for me. I do want to quickly introduce Thanos Gauthier.
Good evening. Just real quick, how to schedule bulky item pickup. So let's go back a couple years. In 2017, the number one requested item in the city service center was abandoned items. 2 years later, the number one requested item is scheduled bulky item pickup. So we were averaging about 7,000 bulky and abandoned item pickups a year. 60% of them were abandoned. Now we've entirely reversed that course through what is known as a call before you throw program that we instituted in February of 2017. This year, we're around, for the last year, 7,100 scheduled items for bulky items scheduled, and abandoned items are about 3,500. So we've totally turned the tide. And we've done that by utilizing the City Service Center and the CSC app, making it easy for residents to contact us to schedule the bulky items, as well as informing us about the abandoned items. Now, I always recommend, if you happen to see something on the side of the road, call it in. What that does is that puts our department on the clock, generates a statistic, and we have a certain number of days to pick it up. So through that CSC and the City Service Center app, we've totally turned around what was once not the greatest looking area. And if you leave the city of Pasadena and just drive into the surrounding communities, you can tell the difference between the two. Street sweeping services, just real quick, we have about 38 routes that consist of mostly from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. We do our best. There are some overnight parking permits that sort of block our curbs. In District 3, we have, ever since 2010, we still call it a pilot program, from Maple to Penn, north to south, and from Fair Oaks to Los Robles, east to west. We run a Monday, every other Monday exempt route. That's the most effective and efficient form of cleaning, because during the hours of 8 to 12, east to west streets, no parking, and we clean the streets impeccably. North to south, from 12 to 4, no parking, we clean the streets impeccably. And with that, that's just a short synopsis of what we have here. And if there's any questions, I'll wait around later and we can get moving with the program.
Hi, on the bulky item pickup, each resident gets how many of those? And what are the rules around that?
Yeah, the rules are 2 free bulky item pickups a year for 2. 2 free a year. They're limited in size, basically what you can put inside a 3 cubic yard bin. You can get additional pickups based on the size and the amount that you generate at a nominal cost, starting at about $45 up to about $125. We're very flexible. We'd love everybody to take advantage of those free bulky item pickups.
Is that for every resident or?
That is per residential account.
So if they don't have an account with the city of Pasadena?
Yeah, if they don't have an account with the city of Pasadena, check with your franchise hauler. We hold them accountable for 2 free bulky item pickups a year per service account as well.
Any other questions? Go ahead. Can we get him the mic?
Thank you for your service. I'm wondering what the electrical undergrounding plan is. Like, I see a lot of poles everywhere, and if you're going to repave, is that going to be in conjunction with undergrounding of utility lines?
We do coordinate with Pasadena Water and Power where they have plans for undergrounding. Typically, they also include street restoration. It varies on the nature of the existing street, if it's concrete or asphalt, if it's in good shape or bad shape. Street restoration is a consideration after their undergrounding efforts, though, for sure. Deciding where to go is a Pasadena Water and Power decision, not Public Works.
There's the coordination on Raymond.
Yeah.
So there's the Raymond Underground project that's getting ready to kick off later this year, and there's been coordination between Public Works and Water and Power to not repave the street until they do the underground project. And it'll be the same thing for Florencita and be the same thing up in the canyons in response to the fires. Are there any other questions?
Hello. I'm trying to get Pasadena City to wash the trucks, our garbage truck. Our garbage truck is filthy. They've never been this filthy. You come, pick up your garbage all down on side the truck. You can see all the black garbage stuff on the truck. The trucks need to be clean. And our trucks never been looking like this. It's just horrible. So let's get those trucks clean on the outside. They had someone down the city to wash those trucks, kept them clean, but not anymore. Them trucks just up. You look at it, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Thank-
actually, we have an outside contractor that comes half the year, every week during the rainy season, and every other week during the dry season. We actually have them power washed, and we also scrub the undercarriage. The trucks take a tremendous amount of bang, if you will. And when we travel to the landfill, they accumulate a lot of material. But they are washed every week. But I will let you know that we're taking acceptance of 6 brand-new trucks that will look really, really good for at least a month. I can guarantee that. But we do our best to try to keep them looking good. We're just trying to get the most out of our vehicles and sort of use the residents' money for maybe things that are a little more important, like trying to keep the rates down, diversion rates high, bulky item programs, things of this nature. But we do understand cleanliness of the trucks is important. So we do have a contractor clean them, but I think we're cleaning them so hard that we're taking some of the paint off. But it's certainly well noted. Thank you very much.
All right, one more last question. Go ahead.
Yes, over here on Merton and was it Spruce Lane and Glorietta, we have a lot of, like after recreation is over with the football things going on, there's a lot of littering comes doing down Glorietta. But I notice is that by the park, those streets are just clean. The litter, the papers, and all cleaned up. When it comes down to going down Glorietta, the litter is still there. So it's like that area has been focused on being cleaned up, but when it comes down to Glorietta, it's not cleaned up.
Oh, well, thank you for your concern. We'll definitely be in touch with Parks and Recreation with regards to that. In the past, they have actually tried to address a wider zone after all these events. I will talk to their superintendent tomorrow, and I'll pass along that information. We will address it.
Thank you. Okay. Up next, we have a presentation from the Director of Rent Stabilization, Ms. Helen Morales.
And I want to thank Councilmember for having us here today. I do want to introduce our new manager, and this is Stanko Zavko. He's just come online with us. And he's a very integral part of our work. Many of our constituents will be speaking to our housing counselors, and he manages our housing counselors. So we want to get started here. I know we got time going, so I'm going to skip a few things. But most importantly, I want to address the Eaton Fire Ordinance that was passed by City Council on March 27, 2025. And it allows tenants to defer rent if they are impacted by the fire. What it is a defense for eviction in the event that you cannot afford to pay your rent. And this is for the period between January 15, 2025 and July 31st, 2025. So there's a couple factors, and I'm going to go through them. Qualifying tenant is a tenant who resided in the unit on the day of the fire on January 7, 2025, and they need to be income eligible. That's earning 150% of the AMI, so that's very generous. And you need to ensure that you are beginning income replacement. In other words, that you're seeking assistance through unemployment, or you're going to our job center in Pasadena to try and get work. And additionally, direct financial impacts are that you have, that the reason why you're not working or you've lost income of at least 10% is because of the fire. And the 10% calculation includes any income that you're earning from employment, from unemployment or any services that you're doing in the meantime. And so now I want to go over some of our exemptions, just cause exemptions, what is included, what is partially included. So if you are, all properties are required to register, rental properties are required to register with the Rent Stabilization Department. And in addition, they are some fully exempted properties. That means that you actually get the rent control portion. But all properties are subject to just cause evictions. And so these are some exemptions. You could see hotels, rentals in hospitals, convents, monasteries are exempted. Rental units owned and operated by a nonprofit are also exempted pursuant to a tax credit. Units owned and operated or managed by a governmental unit, and single family that are rented or temporarily rented pursuant to our code that allows for a 12-month rentals in any 36 period, and where they share in that home a kitchen or a bathroom. And so the just cause exemptions, they are allowed, partial exemptions, I'm sorry. These are partial exemptions to the extent required by Costa-Hawkins. So any building that was built after February 1st, 1995 is exempted from rent control, but all others are included except for single-family dwellings and condos. So our just cause protections, there's only certain reasons that you can be evicted as a tenant pursuant to the Pasadena Rental Housing Charter Article 18, which you may know by Measure H. And that is failure to pay rent, breach of lease, nuisance, illegal purpose, you're using the unit for an illegal purpose, refusal to execute a lease, but they have to be on the same like terms, and failure to give access. Now, numbers 7 through 11 require relocation fees and have certain protections in them. For example, an owner can evict you for being the subtenant in sole possession. What that means is you're not on the contract. The person who's in the unit now was not contracted, and so they can evict you for that reason, but have to pay relocation fees. And necessary and substantial repairs, that is a temporary vacating of the unit, you do have the right to return. Owner move-in, if an owner decides he wants to move in, he does have the right to come forward. I will tell you that through the Eaton Fire, we've had a lot of calls of owners that own property that say, I also have a rental unit and I need to move into that unit. Unfortunately, as a tenant, you do have to vacate the unit. However, you are required to receive relocation benefits, and we'll go into that in a minute. And then withdraw units permanently from the rental. That is the Ellis Act, but there are great protections that are provided in the Ellis Act, and our city council just approved those tenant protections, and so we'll be getting more information and doing a specific training for Ellis Act because it's very complicated, but we want to get the information out to everyone because there's a lot of tenant protections there. And then pursuant to a governmental order, let's say that code enforcement says that the unit needs to be vacated because of damage to the unit. And so for that reason, a landlord can evict you. However, those listed on 7 through 11 require relocation fees. And so the landlord must give you the first right of refusal. Let's say an owner moves in and doesn't stay for the required period of time that they're required to stay in the unit, occupying it as their single residence. They have to give you the opportunity to reoccupy that unit. And you have the first right of refusal to occupy those units. And especially during Ellis, you do have the first right of refusal going over to 10 years after the unit is taken off the rental market. And so if a landlord files a petition for individual rent adjustments within 6 months, then the tenant is also allowed for relocation benefits. Here is a list of relocation benefits. And so we go by the small area, medium income. And so for example, if you lived in your unit from 0 to 3 years, 0 months to 3 years, the studio would allow you a 6,411 relocation. Now, if you have special circumstances, for example, you're a senior, disabled, or have children in the unit, there's an additional, for example, and it goes by the unit sizes you can see here, anywhere from 6,411 to 12,701. In addition, we have requirements for moving expenses. Eligible tenants is 1,573. Special circumstance households is 4,748. Landlords must provide tenants with the notice of existence of the article, and that should be posted either when you come into the unit as a new tenant, you should be getting this, or it should also be posted at the property site. Rent increases are limited to 3% on all the protected units that are included in the article under the rent stabilization ordinance. And currently, the amount is 3%. We come out every October 1st with that CPI index and provide that to the owners to inform them of the maximum amount allowable rent increase. Currently, it's 3%. If you are being charged more than that, you can contact our office and we can help you with that. A rent increase can be contested through a petition process. And so you can come forward if you feel that you've been given an illegal rent increase. You can come to our office and file a petition because it is prohibited and the landlord must adjust that rent. So you please contact our office and we'll give you our contact information so that we can assist you in this matter. Tenant buyout agreements. So this is allowed by the ordinance. You can work an agreement with your landlord to determine what is fair for you to leave the unit, but understand that you have rights under the buyout agreement. You are never required to sign a buyout agreement. If the landlord is not allowed, if the code does not allow a landlord to evict you, you have the right to remain there, even though your lease term may have expired. So that's really important. So you need to contact our office so that we can inform you of that. And they must inform you on the buyout agreement that you have 45 days to say you don't agree with this anymore. So it's a right that you have. And in addition, we have a petition process that allows you to receive an individual rent adjustment, either a downward or an upward adjustment. So under the fair rate of return, a landlord has the right to come in and apply for a petition that says, I actually am not getting a fair rate of return on my investment and I want to increase the rent above the annual general adjustment. And the tenant can come forward if there are habitability issues in the property and file a petition to have a hearing officer determine whether or not a rent reduction should be given because of habitability issues. Also, if there is an illegal rent increase, the petition can also be made for that reason, and decrease in housing services. So let's say the landlord takes away your parking because they're going to build an ADU in the back or add to the property. So you have a right to a rent reduction, and so you have a right to come in and petition the hearing officer to get that rent reduction associated to whatever service or maintenance service that you had at any time pursuant to your lease agreement. And in addition, I want to say this, we're in the registration process now. We have approximately a 78% compliance rate, but that means that some are not in compliance. A tenant has a right to come forward and petition to withhold rent as a result of the landlord's fail to register their property. And so, but I would say do not withhold your rent without coming forward to the hearing officer and getting that determination, because failure to pay rent is a reason for eviction under the rent stabilization ordinance. And so there are remedies, civil remedies. We can actually send it to the prosecutor's office as well if there is a case that a landlord is not complying, and move that forward as well. But tenants do have rights to pursue civil remedies as well. And I'm trying to go through this a little bit quicker. An affirmative defense in an unlawful detainer action. Let's say that you are being evicted and you find out from our office that the owner is not registered your unit. That is a defense in an unlawful detainer action. He cannot, the landlord, he or she or they, will not be able to evict a tenant if they fail to register their unit. And the rental board or the city attorney, as I discussed before, can go forward and set an action to recover on behalf of the tenant. And there's also fines and criminal penalties. So I want to leave with that. And if we have any questions.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. My question is about exempt landlords do exempt landlords. In my case, owner-occupied single-family home. Do we also have to register if those rules don't apply?
I will tell you that no, you do not. I will tell you that some of the information that we had received at the beginning was not accurate. We had some information that single-family dwellings were being rented, and so a lot of people that own their homes unfortunately received that. However, we are not moving forward with the registration process on those, and we will be excluding those from our system shortly. I do want to say we have some flyers in the back, so please get some flyers and some information with our contacts. And please also call us. We're here to help. Thank you.
Thank you. So up next, I'd like to invite Corey Dunlap, the Culture Affairs Division, to present their community research and early concepts for the Robinson Park Recreation Center Public Art Project.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Councilmember, for allowing us to update this project. In the interest of time, I'm going to have to cover a lot of information and skip a bit. We do have a table with information and a display in the back. I hope that you will reach out to us and speak to one of us if we don't answer one of your questions today. Good evening, and again, my name is Corey Dunlap. I'm the Public Art Coordinator under the city's Cultural Affairs Division. It's been almost exactly a year since we last gave an update at the April 30th, 2024 District 3 meeting, so we're happy to be back and update the community. Tonight, it's going to be just a little introduction from me, and then I'm going to introduce Deborah and Carla, the two artists on the project, and they're going to talk a little bit about the outcome of their research and where we are. So just as a reminder, the project was generated through the renovation of this building and was funded as a capital public art project. The project encompasses 2 public artworks intended for a budget of $200,000 sited within this building, within the Recreation Center. And the concept development is divided between a phase 1 development of the concept and phase 2 implementation and development of the artwork. The project is really rooted in the community and was led in large part by the Robinson Park stakeholder group. They represent obviously a wide variety of areas among Northwest and District 3 residents, and they were vital in shaping the goals and overall vision for the artwork in the Recreation Center. From the beginning, they worked to develop a vision statement calling for public art that is rooted in the stories of Northwest Pasadena community, as well as focusing on the legacy specifically of Mac and Jackie Robinson and really how their legacy is reflected today in the history and identity of Northwest Pasadena and Robinson Park. Just as a quick overview, as I mentioned, the 2-phase project includes phase 1, which we are currently in. This is a critical step in that it gives residents, stakeholders, and city staff time to meet with the artists, provide input, and then the artists work to develop their public art proposal. Here's just a high-level overview of the project development thus far, with the vision statement from the stakeholder group really guiding the scope of the project and the selection process. Today we are wrapping up phase 1, and again, this extended engagement phase ensures that as many voices as possible contribute to the project and contribute to the artist's research, and it also allows the artist ample time not to be rushed and to really develop community connections and resources which will then directly inform the artwork. So as I mentioned, artists Deborah Ashheim and Carla J. Harris were selected to lead both 2 tandem projects and contracted in 2023. Since then, they've been actively meeting with residents and connecting with local organizations to, again, really cultivate a strong connection and understanding of Northwest Pasadena and District 3. They've developed, as I mentioned, a strong cohort of community members who have really generously donated their time, stories, and knowledge, and shared a lot of invaluable, in-depth information that will speak to the project. And we're very thankful to all of those who have worked with the artists closely. And the artists have also shared lots of updates and gathered feedback through various public events, community meetings, and presentations to city commissions over the past year and a half or so. So last fall, as a unique component of the project, we launched the Robinson Community Survey, which is a simple but important tool to gather reflections specifically about Mac and Jackie Robinson, not only as icons, but again, as individuals whose legacies are reflected in the Pasadena identity and in District 3. The responses and stories from this survey are very helpful and are being shared with the artists as they develop their concept. We encourage you to participate if you would like. We have further information in the back. It's a very simple quantitative, qualitative survey, and you can remain anonymous if you so choose. So that's been open since last October, and we encourage you to participate. We're excited to share that 3 sites within the Recreation Center in this building have been identified for public art installations. Each will be wall-mounted, designed to be visually engaging and fully integrated into the public space of the building. This is just a building plan overview of the Recreation Center lobby, just out here. You'll note that there's 3 sites, sites A, B, and C. Site A is on the west side of the lobby and has been designated for the project by Carla J. Harris. Site C is in the east side alcove and has been designated for Deborah Aschheim. And then Site B in the middle there is actually a collaborative project in which both of the artists are going to be working together and has been set aside to focus, again, specifically on the legacies of Mac and Jackie Robinson, highlighting how their contributions as athletes, activists, and community leaders have contributed to the city. So just wanted to share a couple of preliminary images of the space in here. Again, this is the floor-to-ceiling wall across from the welcome desk in the front there. This is the north side corridor, which again is intended for the collaborative Robinson family-focused project. And then Site C is the alcove at the east entrance of the center. So again, as I mentioned, the 2 artists are working collaboratively in 2 tandem projects. We're wrapping up phase 1, and we're looking to have the artists finalize their research and prepare to submit their concept proposals. And that's why the participation tonight is really valuable and much appreciated. Thank you everyone for staying. We really appreciate it. And if we aren't able to answer any questions or you want more information, we hope to speak with you after this in the back. And next, I'll introduce each of the artists to kind of give an overview of their updates so far, and we hope to see you participate. So first, I'll introduce Deborah Aschheim.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for staying so late. And so Carla and I have been interviewing people, drawing them, making prints of them, having lunch with people, and really spent the past 2 years getting to know a lot of folks. I'm just going to show you some of the not everybody I've met, but just a few of the cultural communities of Northwest Pasadena that I've been introduced to from people that I've met. And I'll probably just go a little bit quickly through it because I could tell you long stories about all the people. So some of the people are here today too, but when I started out learning a lot of the history of Northwest Pasadena, as y'all know, it's the most diverse neighborhood in Pasadena. It's actually where I live. So these are some drawings that were shared with me by descendants of the Prince family, which is the second African-American family that moved to Pasadena in the 1880s. And Bart Ross, who's here today, who's an artist, who is a descendant of the Prince family. And so my artwork, we're not really sharing proposals for the artwork yet today. We're just going to show you our research. But this is sort of the feel of my artwork, because what I want to make for the space, which is currently where the trophy cases are right now, is going to kind of create a feeling of the lobby as being sort of like a living room. So you know how people make vernacular arrangements of family photos in their stairwells and the hallways of their homes? I wanted to have that kind of a feel, like sort of a collage feel of images. So some of these might be very nostalgic for people. This is the original First AME Church, which is on Raymond and Penn now, but it used to be on Vernon Street, which is a street that doesn't exist anymore, down in Old Town. This is the old location of Woods Mortuary. Some people in this room, I think, remember some of these. And Barry and Sweeney, which is a Japanese-American and African-American owners of that pharmacy, and that's still there. And then this is Alma Stokes, who is actually Danny Parker's favorite aunt. And she told me amazing stories about working as a teacher in the Pasadena schools, and even before the schools were integrated, she did a program to as a kind of a proof of concept that kids could get along. She left that job and worked for the redevelopment and was part of the original planning for what's now Kings Villages. She didn't like that job very much, and she also was a pioneer of creating Outward Bound Adventures, which gave city youth experiences of really in-depth outdoor adventures. This is the people from the Japanese American community. I met a lot of families that had moved to Northwest Pasadena and bought homes, and some of them were forced out of their homes when Japanese families were made to go to the concentration camps in World War II. And so Brian and Jerry Takeda shared this image with me that I drew with permission from Pasadena Union Church. But this is Japanese families gathering together for a special lunch to say goodbye before they volunteered to go to the buses to get deported. And then people told me a lot of stories of that having to start over again and rebuild everything when they were allowed to come back. And so one thing that I know from living through the horrible disaster of this year is that this is a community that's had a lot of experience with being resilient and having to rebuild. And that's a story I've heard over and over again, whether it was because, like what Amma told me about Fair Oaks, that it was a thriving neighborhood of Black-owned businesses and single-family homes, and people had to start over. I guess we're good at that here. So anyways, also I learned about Johnny's Sport Shop, which I'd known about for years, but I didn't know what an important place that was and how it used to be a full-on grocery store, and they introduced sushi to Pasadena and the San Gabriel Valley. So, and then I also met with a lot of people from the Latina community. So this is Roberta Martinez, who actually lives in my backyard, not in my backyard, but like behind my house. And she wrote a great book called Latinos in Pasadena. And she's the person who we can thank for there being the Latino Heritage Parade. Patricia Guzman and Renee Gonzalez. Renee has an organization called Padres. And Patricia is a kindergarten teacher at Madison Elementary who's worked really hard for opportunity for Spanish-speaking and immigrant kids to make sure that they knew that they could exceed expectations and go to college. And so those guys are both really great supporters of education for their community and other communities as well also. Prentice Diedrich, who was a really great director of the park and was, I think, assistant city manager for a while, but he, along with Reggie Harmon, who still works here. So we have a rule, people can't be in the artwork, they won't be featured in it if they are currently employees of the city. However, we're going to have an online project where a lot of these stories can be told in greater detail, and anybody can be in that. So they told me stories about, similar to what people are complaining about today. There was a lot of crime in this area when the gangs were very active in the 80s and 90s, and how they worked a lot, and the park was central to bringing the kids together and getting them to, in some cases, turn their life around from crime. So that actually has a lot of relevance. A lot of the stories that I've heard about the past 50 or more years really seem to speak to some of the situations that we have today. This is Mario Clark, who I adore, and he was here, but he had to leave. But this is him playing at Pasadena High School, and then he went on to play in the Super Bowl for San Francisco 49ers. He also played with the Buffalo Bills, and then when he retired after being in the Super Bowl, he worked with youth at the Rose Bowl in a kind of like an after-school program. So he's a great community person. This is Felita Keeling and Nia Bailey, and they're part of the African American Parent Council, and they couldn't come here tonight because they have a meeting for the schools, but they talked to me and Carla a few times about the work that they're doing to make sure that students in the schools get opportunities from the African American community, and they've done just a lot of really great things for kids through the parent group. And then there's, I know I don't have time to share all the stories, but there's stories that I'm working on. Donnie Donabedian, who is the chairperson of the Armenian National Committee, Pasadena chapter. George Tucker, who is also another sports legend, played basketball at University of Oregon. He was here earlier but had to go. And Darlene Anderson, who's still here, and I didn't share her long story because I've told it a lot of times, but if you go on our blog and our Instagram, you can hear her
fantastic. You can learn her fantastic story. She was the first African American woman to break the color barrier in roller derby. And I'm going to hand it off to Carla.
All right, everyone, good evening. Thanks so much again. I'm going to echo the gratitude that Corey and Deborah shared for both you all staying to hear about our project, and also to anyone here that participated. We really appreciate you sharing our stories with us. And we look at this project as a collaboration, so we couldn't do it without you, and we really appreciate the time and energy you've dedicated to us. Deborah and I, we are making separate projects, but we are also collaborating both on the research and also on the thinking for how the projects come together in this space. Deborah's project is likely going to highlight individual images, whereas my project is more of a mural, more of a collage. And so I have spent this time, this pyramid of research and engagement, talking to people, learning about their stories, but then I will kind of weave them together into sort of more of a narrative that will kind of be grouped together in a larger mural that talks about some of the themes that I learned while I was meeting and talking with you all. So I'm going to use these next few minutes to just kind of very quickly summarize the research that I've done over the past year, and also give you sort of a quick glimpse into what is going to be coming next. So here's a quick snapshot of Deborah and I. You can see that our standee in there, which is also in the back here, which includes some images of people that we've met and spoken to. I won't spend too long here, so I know we're short on time, but if you have time afterwards or you want to talk about it or learn about any of those pictures, please do stop through. The important thing from this slide is just a quick glimpse at all the different sort of areas, methodologies we've used to learn about West Pasadena and the people here. Okay, a few more photos of us out in the community. What I've learned. In talking to people here, I've learned about sort of the legacy of the rich history of this community that will, of course, be represented in this project, but also some of the individuals. You know, some people who are really big, famous names, but also people who are not so famous that just live close by and come to the park, use the gym, and are just part of making this community really rich and enjoyable. And so this is an example of Alicia Brown here, who's one of those people that I had the privilege of speaking with last year. And so that's just a moment I wanted to call out, that this isn't just about highlighting, the famous faces and names. We also want to make it about the people that live here and kind of come here every day. Additionally, as Deborah said, we've had the pleasure of talking to some people that work with the park, or either directly or work on some of the programs here. This is Ahmad, who works with the youth football program. So he's a big part of the park, and people who contribute directly and as well as have kind of just committed themselves and dedicated themselves to making this park great will be featured as well. Additionally, in my work, I like to highlight individuals, of course, but also places. And so I spent time doing and documenting some important places, both the history of Robinson Park as well as the history of Northwest Pasadena. Joyce Miles is an artist as well as someone who worked with the city as a social worker. And so I think it's one of the things I've learned as Deborah spoke to, some of the resilience of the city. And so that's a recurring theme that will be highlighted as well. There's also a rich cultural landscape here. This is another location. A few of them I documented is in Muir High School, which maybe some people here attended. They've been a big. We had the opportunity to go there and take a look at the museum and talk to a lot of people that attended the school and document their stories. Adrian Devine is a local artist I had the pleasure of meeting with. Northwest Pasadena has a rich history of art and music and culture as well. That's a recurring theme that I think is important to call out. And then I think the last one I'll touch on here, because I know it's getting late, is the Robinson family history. Of course, as Corey mentioned, we're going to have a piece that speaks directly to their impact on this community. We've had the pleasure of speaking with a few members of the family, but of course, it is Robinson Park, and so we want to make sure that their legacy is highlighted appropriately as well. So with that, I think I'll just skip ahead here to what's next. So we spent the past year, Barbara and I, meeting with a number of different people, different parts of the community, different organizations. But of course, there's always gaps. And so as we look to kind of wrap up this project and move on to the part where we're going to actually start making things, we want to make sure we set time aside and space for anything that might have been missed. We're still looking to meet with new people. So if there's anything that, I know we went pretty fast, but if there's anything that you're saying, hey, why did we talk to this person, or why did we go here or there, please reach out to us. Let us know. We will. We're open to speaking with basically anyone who has a connection to Northwest Pasadena or Robinson Park. So don't feel like you're not important, your story is not important, every story is important, and we would love to speak with you. With that, there are a few sort of bullet points here, groups that we think we could are especially interested in. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll add to that, and I just want to also mention, we can't create a comprehensive history of Northwest Pasadena for our art project, and we also aren't trying to single people out and say these are the most prominent or most important individuals. If we kind of work backwards from audience. So if you think of generations of kids coming here to play sports and to people coming to community meetings, what will give them a sense of what are the values of the community, what are some of the main storylines, or just who are people that were willing to talk to us and share maybe a slice of life. Carla, I think I'm focused a little bit on some of these people who were the first to break a color barrier, people that are sort of well known, or people that were involved in integration or protests. And Carla's very interested in this as a place of community and joy. So either of those storylines of somewhere that people felt supported and safe. And so it doesn't have to be a big banner headline story. It could just be something that you're thinking, what does Robinson Park and Northwest Pasadena mean to me that I feel like is missing from even this brief overview or from going to the blog and the Instagram? And we know the ones that we're missing women athletes. We would love to meet more people that really came up in this park and it was really important to them as kids playing sports here or doing other programs. We know there used to be amazing programs like yoga and martial arts and things that we don't have now. We'd love to learn more about that, or if anybody has old photos of them doing those activities or their kids or grandchildren. We'd love to have more young people because we've interviewed a lot more people about the history. But you also might be thinking, well, that's all pretty good, but they're really missing the point because they don't have X. We hope someone in this audience has that complaint, and that you reach out to us, and instead of having it as a complaint, you could have it as a collaboration that you're bringing. So, for example, we know there's a great music history in this neighborhood. We'd love to hear more from people that are involved in music. You might be thinking other stuff right now.
Yeah, so we're going to stay after to ask questions, so feel free to come up, and if you don't have a chance to talk to us or you have to go home, we are accessible via Instagram. We'll have an email address, and of course through the city as well, so please don't hesitate to raise your hand and let us know if you'd like us to kind of talk to you or learn your story. And then last but not least, what's next? We are looking to wrap up sort of the research phase for this project, or these two projects, in the next couple months or so. And then we're going to move on to putting together a proposal which will include kind of concepts, ideas for what the actual projects will look like. And you guys, the community, will have a chance to kind of weigh in on those as well in the future once we get to that point. Yep.
Okay. Oh, I just want to add one more thing. We mentioned that there's a part of or as Corey mentioned, that there's a part of the project that has to do with the legacy of the Robinsons, and we haven't shown you images of the Robinsons, and that's because we really want to have it be more about what the Robinsons mean to the community. So we encourage you to participate in the survey, and if anybody's willing to have a phone call with us or meet with us, it's really sort of this idea of the legacy of the Robinsons reflected back through people who grew up in this neighborhood, who held them up in their mind as examples of what was possible, who feel like they're following in their footsteps, or maybe when they were a kid, just knowing that, Jackie Robinson lived on Pepper Street, I live near Pepper Street. So, we're looking for people's recollections to kind of bring this legacy to life. It could even just be a certain place in the city. Maybe it's the sculpture of the heads, or Lincoln Post Office, which is now named after Mac, where you really feel their presence and you think about how them having the Robinson brothers having been
been from here makes Pasadena a special place for you. So we're asking you to contribute that too. So I know we're asking you for a lot of stuff, but if you have any stories like that, we'd love to hear them.
Well, thank you all for coming. I know we kept our ambassadors over time. So thank you. I'll stay around and stick around and answer any questions or connect you with any city services that you may need. So thank you.